feels like deja vu. Said I'd never see you again, but I run right back to you. Cause you're always on my mind. Baby, I think we should give it one.
And I am Michele Mussatto of UnRated magazine here at Strange Music Studios in Kansas City with Kansas City's own rising star, MacKenzie Nicole.
Hi.
Hi. Happy Valentine's Eve, MacKenzie.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Oh,
Do you have any big plans for tomorrow?
I think I'm gonna go bowling with my friends.
Oh.
I don't have anything that exciting going
Not
on.
romantic, but fun.
No, I'll take it though.
Yeah. All right, awesome. So you record here at Strange Music.
I do.
Amongst hip-hop artists.
Yeah, amongst many, many rappers, yeah.
But you've been coined a pop artist.
Yeah.
Those terms are generic. How do you describe your music?
So I'm glad you asked. For me, I'm kind of in a weird place because I've been classically trained to sing opera since I was 6, so I'm an opera singer assigned to a rap label trying to start a pop division. Mm-hmm. So I have a lot going on.
I sure do.
Really, for me, my point, and I've said this a lot, is to kind of Trojan horse some substance and edge back in like pop music. Mm-hmm. I feel like right now is a really good time because the artists that are out right now and the climate, like people like Halsey, Dua Lipa, that's kind of the lane I want to be in. Dua Lipa is self-described as having kind of, she describes her music as dark pop, which is really cool because it's like this like mystical coven of like pop princesses. I think it's really cool. So I want to be a part of that. Kind of that sector of pop and where that movement's going.
Well said. You've produced 2 singles and you have an album coming out.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay. That's an awful lot for a young woman. You're not
I am 18.
18. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Can you tell me how you became so accomplished so young as an artist?
Well, thank you. I've been recording professionally since I was 9 years old, so about half my lifetime ago. On records with my label mate Tech N9ne. And for me, really, I grew up in the music industry. I've been going, this label is my entire life. I've been going on tours with these guys since I was little. And so really, kind of, it was innate to just start working at a young age. Like I said earlier, when, this label started out of the basement of my childhood home. And so I was in warehouses as a kid helping, load merch, things like that. So I've always worked in some capacity. I say work lightly because I know, because child labor laws. Mm-hmm. In some capacity or helped out in some capacity at Strange, and it's always kind of been second nature to jump in where I can. And so when I came to my own career, if there's anything you learn from being around artists like Tech, who, if you've seen his tour schedule, if you've seen his recording schedule, it's insane. It's work ethic. And ultimately, as an independent label especially, you can't be around for the song and not get work ethic. So that's really where that comes from for me.
Music is a lot of hard work. It's not an easy industry. Do you remember the time in your life when you decided, I'm going to be a singer?
There really was no particular moment, I don't think. There are moments where I realized small things here and there. Like, I've always sung. I hummed before I could talk, so as soon as I could say words, I was singing. When I've always gotten music, I've always gotten how to read music, so that always came naturally. I did a play, I think it was like Wizard of Oz, when I was really little, and I was like, ooh, I like this, I like being on stage. Yeah, because for me, I kind of realized when I started performing, doing theater, smaller performances when I was younger, I'm in general, and I still am, a very socially anxious person, and I'm nervous in every interaction I ever have. I'm constantly at a dull or sometimes very loud roar of anxiety. Wow. But I'm pretty much only collected and cool when I'm performing.
When you're on stage.
And so for me, it's, it just seemed like a natural escape. Mm-hmm. It was a series of encouragements from Tech, from our in-house producer Seven, who's one of my biggest inspirations ever, and a very close confidant of mine, that really nudged me into doing this for sure as my career after the release of way back in 2015, my first single as a solo artist, Acting Like You Know, and after that went surprisingly well compared to expectations.
Well, let's talk about that. Was that a song that you wrote? What inspired you?
Yeah, so basically what happened there is we were doing we do several of them, label-wide collaborative album, and it was called Strange Relation Volume 2. And I knew that I wanted a guest slot on there. I knew Tech wanted me to have a guest slot on there, just, because I'd already been on so many records between him and the other artists at this point. It seemed natural. but he had to leave for tour before we could get anything done. And so then our producer Seven calls me. He says, "Hey, so clearly we could still try and like pitch a hook to Tech, see how that works. But with him going on tour, that's probably not going to get pulled off." And I was like, "Yeah, I know." And he's like, "Okay, so what if you did a song and pitched it to Tech, so it's your song, but Tech features on it?" Another artist Darian did that. Darian at the time, that was his debut on Strange as a solo artist, much like it was mine, during that album. And I was like, "Yeah, it sounds like a great idea." And so when I was thinking, okay, what do me and Tech have in common? Most of the stuff we've done together is dark music because, Demons, King of Darkness, So Lonely, Fear. I kind of wanted to get away from that for a second, We always do so much dark music together and we both love it, but you need to diversify. So the song Acting Like You Know came pretty naturally. For me, growing up in a rap label, something that people don't innately know is that I also went to a lot of very conservative religious schools as a child. My high school was great, but the schools I went to before that were not as tolerant of, say, anything that my family did. Like, I had a teacher when I was like 7 tell me that my family was going to be damned to hell for perpetuating satanic worship. Yeah. So, like, environments like that leave you a little bit of a chip on your shoulder, and that's what Acting Like You Know came out of. And so then it ended up, after it was recorded and released, being the #1 selling track off of that all hip-hop album. And that's kind of when, on the corporate side of the company, heads started turning like, oh, we should be paying a little bit of attention to MacKenzie, and then this is where we are now. I've always written, and I have recorded a lot of songs that'll probably never be released because they're more just get to know yourself as an artist type records. And writing is a huge passion of mine. Of course, for me, until my debut album here, everything was written solely by me, or this, partially in conjunction. If I was collaborating with someone, like, say, on the record Erased that I worked on with Prozac, we co-wrote that. Or where Tech goes, "Hey, I just need you to say fear." Obviously, there wasn't a lot of writing involved there. Mm-hmm. But up until this album, I was pretty much solely writing my own work. And then when we got to this album, again, the effort was to make a pop album, and that's not naturally where my writing goes. My writing naturally trends darker, and I would have ended up with some weird, like, rock-leaning concept album that would have been awesome, but not maybe a great platform to build a career on as a debut album. So in order to make this record a very, viable pop record, we ended up working with a production duo called The Jam out of Los Angeles, and it was co-written with them in order to make it, a little bit more true to form as a pop project, generalized writing a little bit in terms of not making it so obscure, so overly nuanced and poetic, and just making it something that's a little bit more universally relatable.
Okay, and that Jam's pretty huge. They've worked with Lady Gaga. Yeah,
they've worked with quite a few people. Yeah, it's the popness of the record can really be credited to them because, like I said, it's a very hard adjustment to, try and learn an entire new methodology. And so that was something that was, you learn from every encounter you have as an artist. And so that's something that I definitely credit to them is how pop the record ended up. And, which is the intention, so that's good.
Okay. So is it true you're executive producer on the album?
I am the executive producer on the album. When I'm not artisting, as I've kind of, coined that term, I am here a lot of times before and after staff every day and on weekends. I'm working on the executive and corporate side of the company. And so a lot of what that entails is, in terms of what I do for my own projects, I do stuff outside of my own project, but ultimately I'm also executive producing my own project. I'm working heavily in the marketing. I'm creatively directing all of it. Very, very overly, probably irritatingly involved to the point where everyone here at Strange would like me to, get a hobby and, not be here all the time. But, yeah, like I said earlier, when you've been around it this long, and so the business kind of becomes, kind of integral to your thinking as an artist. Mm-hmm. And so to be involved in just the artist artist proper aspects, just didn't feel right when I knew I had the capability to attempt more.
Sure. And I haven't known many musical artists that weren't visual artists as well.
Yes.
Do you have that side of you?
I am very, very, very visual. I have this thing that I do with my marketing team and anyone who's ever worked with me ever. I make Pinterest boards for everything, every single music video, for the album cover shoot, for the overall aesthetic of the album. Like, this entire staff is on Pinterest now, practically.
That's a good way.
It works really well. And again, you know, when you're making art, it's, you know, art is a sensory experience. So you're trying to convey an aesthetic or some sort of experience to someone using, you know, all your senses, not just, you know, sonic qualities, but also visual and things like that. And so if it's not well-rounded, or if you don't have an overall, like, all-encompassing vision, how are you gonna, you know, how are you gonna make sure that you are giving people, you know, giving the full, you know, credit to the product that it deserves?
I think you're so right with today's social media.
Yeah.
And when you're writing a song or coming up with a concept for a musical piece, are you already envisioning what the video will look like or what the album?
Yeah, to an extent. For me, I especially when something is wholly written by me, I definitely, as I'm writing it, or especially as I listen to a beat, I get pretty much a very intense landscape of, especially colors. I'm very attached to colors. Our producers and engineers have heard me, you know, reference like songs as yellow and blue and green so many times they practically probably are over it, but they get it. They get it.
Awesome.
And so then as we develop the song, it just adds more and more layers as the, you know, as the vocals come in, as the vocal production comes in, as, you know, it goes into mixing and mastering. And by the end of it, you have a pretty good idea of this abstract world that the song lives in. And while I'm not good at necessarily always literally translating that into what the treatment will look like, what this will look like, what that'll look like in terms of videos, or things like that, usually I can pretty well convey the abstract, like here's some Pantone swatches and here's like a picture of lights on a plant, and then like our guys in the video department or anyone we bring in off staff usually can look at it and go, yes, let me translate that from MacKenzie into like reality.
Sounds like you're thinking like a filmmaker almost.
Thank you so
all the
much.
senses. Have you ever thought of acting?
Oh, I would love that. I would really love that. In general, like I love art in general, and I already work in music. I love writing outside of music, especially because there are very strict parameters in terms of what you can write lyrically to get to fit a musical format, right? And aside from already doing graphic design and other visual art, I would love to expand to as many fields as possible. So one day I would love to get into film, love to get into acting, things like that.
Yeah, good. So back to The Edge. Do you feel fulfilled as an artist? Are you proud of that piece? Are there places that you regret a little bit?
You know, this is an interesting question. I think that it's hard to feel completely fulfilled by any project. There are very few moments. There are actually only 3 moments that I can say I definitely felt fulfilled in all the things I've done. And I've done a lot of stuff. Like my career really just started in the last 2 years, but 2 years is a long time to get a lot done. And I can say there are probably 3 moments where I was like, that was a good job. And so maybe it's super critical. Doesn't mean that I don't encourage people to check out the album, because like I said, just because I'm not fulfilled by it doesn't mean it's not good. It just means that I'm overly critical of myself. I don't know if there will ever be a project. I hope there will be. I really do. But I don't know if there will ever be a project where I'm like, I can put this to bed and I feel comfortable.
Now, that's spoken like a true artist.
Thank you.
In your head and in your heart is never going to be exactly what comes out. So you'll probably be on an endless pursuit, which is good for us. So, Preview, was that your first single off?
Yeah, that was we were plotting what to drop first, just to give people kind of a taste of what the album would be like, and then the track Preview, because it's literally a preview. It's like we've accidentally, like I'm not a pun person, like to just take an aside real quick, but I've accidentally done this a few times during the album where I keep describing it as like, it's like pop but edgier, and people are like, aha, the edge, and I'm like, oh. Or like people be like, yeah, Preview, it really was kind of a preview, of the album, and then I'll realize, oh no. But yeah, it's the first single, and then originally it wasn't intended to be like the lead single, it was just meant to be the first thing we dropped. But then the more people internally heard it, and then after we did an album listening session here, in conjunction with KCHZ or 95.7 The Vibe here in Kansas City just recently, we started to discover that people do, in fact, really like Preview. And so we had to kind of run with it. And, I think that overall, it's one of the songs that is a little bit more generally relatable because it's nuanced. It isn't just one angle of a relationship. And so I think no matter what state of, relationship you're in, you can relate to one of the aspects of the song, whether it's the conflict, the anger, heartbreak, the feeling of being in love, etc. So
that's a theme that could go on forever. So can you mention some other songs off the album that you've done videos to in particular?
Yeah. So in terms of videos, right now Preview and, we have 2 kind of lanes of video. We're doing 3 really. We have a proper music video, which needs no introduction. We've done 2 of those with Preview, and then the one that is unreleased that we just filmed, I think a week ago, 2 weeks ago, called Back to You. Okay. And there's a lot of bowling in that one. So we'll see how that goes. I'm excited. But then we have these visualizers, which are like what we did with the Anxious release, which is the second track we released off the album. And the point of that was, in the past, when we release an audio on different platforms digitally, we usually use the single or album cover, and that's it. And I felt like for my album, since I'm such a visual person, since this album lives in its own universe of visuals, we wanted to make it a little bit more compelling, even though it was just an audio. And while we can't afford to do a video for every single song, because that wouldn't do anything justice and it'd get lost in the mix, we figured we could take these 1 or 2, 3-shot, very simplistic visuals just to set a scene for your mental as you're listening to the song. So that's where that came from. And then something else that I'm not really sure if I'm allowed to talk about, but I'm going to go for it, we haven't released any of yet, which are, internally we've been calling them minis. I don't know what we'll end up calling them. But these very short ones, like 1 minute verse and hook segments of different tracks throughout the album that are like a nice balance between the visualizers and a music video, where they're just meant to be these for the art, very filmy pieces. And we've done one of those so far to a track called Dark Side. So those are some of the visual components you can come to expect from the album. And those are a few of the songs you can expect them for, I guess. Wow, awesome.
Have you been involved with the merchandising and design?
Yeah, originally, when we started making merch for me, we had very little to work with because I'd only recorded Acting Like You Know. And then that sat for a year before releasing another thing. And then that sat for a year. And so we had 2 songs that were proper singles and then my name. Then once we had this album recorded, all of a sudden, we have all this material to work with. And so while I'm not directly designing the merch per se, because frankly with everything else,
you're a busy girl.
And we have a graphic design department for a reason, and so I don't want to overstep on everyone's toes, only like most people's toes. But we definitely, I've gotten to be involved in the making of the merch and stuff like this. And so I'm very excited about that because I want everything. And of course, you're always going to have to make compromises, because reality has a lot of catches. You're always going to have to make compromises, but I want everything to be as perfect as possible as it can be right now,
I would think so. It's your first baby. It's exciting.
Right, exactly.
So is there a tour planned?
So there isn't a MacKenzie Nicole exclusive tour planned. However, I'll be popping up on 12 dates of my label mate Tech N9ne's Planet Tour starting in April, and I'm very excited.
12 dates, you said?
Yes.
Wow, okay, so that's a lot of travel.
I'm very excited. I have been doing a lot of traveling a lot recently. I think 2 weekends ago, whenever the Grammys were, end of January, I was in New York, and then last week I actually just got back in town Sunday or Saturday, I believe. LA, and then I may or may not leave for Atlanta in a couple days, and then next week I'm going back to LA, so lots of traveling happening.
You've been hobnobbing with a lot of famous artists. Are you making any BFFs in the industry?
Yeah, I like to think so. I just I'm a very complimentary person to a point that it's kind of uncomfortable, and I know it is, but I can't stop it. And so there have been a few artists that I meet, and I just want to be their best friend, and I really hope I don't make it weird, but I kind of do. Like, I just recently met a really cool rapper. I just met Prof, who's one of my favorite rappers. He's, you know, one of those, like, I grew up on Midwestern hip-hop, and regionally speaking, it's very hard to find good, not hard to find good Midwestern rap, but it's hard to find stuff that really personifies it as much as people like, you know, like Tech, who I love and know well, and people like Prof do. And I met him, and I was the most uncomfortably awkward person you can imagine, and I was just like, just don't do anything stupid. I did everything stupid. But yeah, I've had the privilege of meeting a lot of really cool people, from, you know, Prof to, like, you know, boy bands like Pretty Much. Again, it's just cool to meet artists, and I wish I was one of those people who had that, like, composed, like, very casual artist thing down, but I don't.
No.
Like, I freak out about my friends that I see on a daily basis to a point that's uncomfortable, so when I see, like, people who I'm like, whoa, like, I want to meet them, it's just...
You have a friendly, warm energy.
Thank you.
So last year you toured with Tech a bit, or yeah, okay.
It was the best. Like I said, I've been going on these tours, following them with my family because, you know, work, since really for my entire life. I've been to over 1,000 Tech N9ne concerts. Not an exaggeration, that's a real number. So for me, getting to perform at them now, it's like a family reunion every night because Tech's like my uncle. All the artists are to some extent like my big brothers. And all the fans, like, a lot of them have watched me grow up since I was 9 years old. So some of the same people who I was replying back to YouTube comments on when I was 9, being like, oh, thank you so much, are the same people who are now, like, pre-ordering my album, like, hey, Mac, I've just got super excited, and it's really cool. So, you know, I can't complain about anything with these tours. I love them so much because we're all there to celebrate this thing that I live for and adore, which is this label, which is Strange Music.
Yeah. So when it comes to Tech, when did you start actually collaborating on his album?
Yeah, so when I was 9 years old, Tech had always been around me, so Tech knew I sang, but it got to the point where, like, we'd all be in the car together, and, like, I would be, like, small, like, toddler, little blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl MacKenzie would be, like, rapping his verses and stuff, and he was like, huh. And so that was when he had the song called Demons on his album KOD that he wanted to, that he heard me on. And so from there, I then did KOD. From there, I did, I believe, So Lonely next. And so it was when I was 9 years old and on the album KOD that this relationship in terms of musically collaborating started. And since then, I've probably worked on 10 tracks with Tech. He actually... I think I'm allowed to talk about it. I already broke one rule, so might as well go for it again.
Heard it here first.
Yeah, Tech actually just got out of the studio yesterday doing a feature for a remix of track 1 on my album as a nod to the fact that he's the reason I'm doing this. He's the one who first put me on. So not to have him on my record would be bizarre. So he heard when we were recording the album, he heard this song called One More that he loved. And so then he... kept asking me, he's like, hey, Mama, if you want to feature on that, just let me know. Hey, baby girl, if you want to feature on that. And then finally, with very little convincing, I want to point out, I was like, you know what? Yeah, we need that Tech N9ne feature on this album.
So do I see a video in the future of the two of you?
Oh, that'd be so cool. That would be so cool. We've only done one video together, and it was for the track Fear way back in the day, and I think I was like 13 or 14, so for me it's like a little cringy to look at because, like, no one is at their prime at like 13 or 14.
Yeah, so at the Grammys, that's pretty huge. What did you wear?
So at the Grammys, I wore, here's the thing. We're very DIY. So my mom was literally like online shopping for pretty dresses. And so I, in typical MacKenzie fashion, was in complete all black, and it was really phenomenal. Here's the thing is I think I have a complex growing up around rappers that, like, everyone, when you grow up around, like, gang members and thugs and rappers all the time, and then you look like me, like you got a little bit of a complex because around you, like the you know, status symbol of being cool and successful is being like a huge intimidating man. So like to compensate for the fact that I'm like this tiny like little pop artist, I like had like a handbag that had like brass knuckles on it and like had this cornrowed and like all the black. And so, you know, it was amazing. It's, you know, events like that are really surreal to me still because again, like I said, like it's, you know, I think most people are kind of like, how did I get here? And so going there and seeing people, knowing that like Rihanna's right there, like it's crazy. It's really weird. Yeah. It's
Have
really
you
cool.
met her yet?
I haven't, but I want to. I don't know her, but I trust her. Like I feel like I love her that much. She's amazing.
She's amazing. No, your voice is amazing.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure you're born with part of it, but that the mastery of your voice doesn't come from.
Thank you.
You said you were an opera singer?
Yes. I have a wonderful, wonderful voice coach. Her name is Wendy Bross, and we first linked up when I was 6 years old, and normally she wouldn't take students that young, but she made an exception for me, which was amazing because I would not be here, I wouldn't be doing any of this if it weren't for her, and on so many levels, I got so much from that. Because on one hand, like, yes, like I learned amazing vocal technique, and that is obviously hers, but really just an appreciation for art and language and music and discipline and everything that really, like, not just character building, culture building, but really just what made me me, I feel like, is largely that relationship with Miss Wendy. And you know, I still, when we have time, because, you know, with schedules, it's hard now, go in and, you know, it's wonderful. She's absolutely incredible, and you know, there's a reason she's, you know, there's a reason I'm here, and it's largely her.
You're really fortunate to have made it in the Midwest.
Thank you.
You know, you think of a lot of successes happening on the coast.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about moving to the coast?
Always. Yeah. I have a huge amount of love for Los Angeles because I spent a lot of my childhood there, and I've lived back and forth between here and there since I was very young, primarily here in Kansas City and visiting there more like. But for me, I will always have a huge connection to LA. It really feels like my hometown as much as KC does because I spent like such formative years there when I was a kid. And I absolutely, you know, am just as, you know, similarly but differently in love with cities like New York. And so like every 18-year-old girl in the Midwest, I'm just like, LA, New York. Like it's super cliche, I know, but I mean it, so who cares? Yeah, I think all the time about eventually, you know, moving out to LA to be more part of that scene, moving out to New York to be more part of that scene because I love the cities. And right now I have, you know, I'm very fortunate that my work brings me to them frequently. But, you know, there are pros and cons. You know, if you want to work at quarter speed, go to LA. If you want to work at, you know, triple time, go to New York.
You know, you're right.
We're at a good balance here in the Midwest, but we're also kind of in our own little world, which is amazing because we get to do our own thing, and it really provides room for originality and creativity in a way that is, you know, very, very unique in my opinion, at least. But you know, there are always cons to being a little bit disconnected, but it's give and take with every place you go. So
Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it.
thank you.
Why not bring the party to Kansas City?
Exactly. I wouldn't mind that. You know, we've kind of done that in a lot of ways here. It's really cool to watch people, especially from industry-heavy towns like LA, New York, and elsewhere. Of course, those are just because we mentioned coast, the ones that are on my mind. Come out here and realize, like, oh wow, like this is a complex. Like this is a 5-building, multi-block.
This is beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. At Strangeland, Strange Music, we have a lot going on. It's more, you know, I think that naturally you don't think, you know, music label, record label in KC, you don't think that something that started in a suburban basement is going to end up like this.
Here.
Exactly.
Awesome. So did you go to high school?
I did go to high school.
In Kansas City, I mean.
Yeah, I did go to high school in Kansas City.
I'm glad you went to high school.
Yeah, you know, I've gotten that question before, like, so did you ever go to school? And I'm like,
Well,
yeah.
and that's another question. You're so obviously intelligent.
Thank
Are you
you.
planning on going to college?
Well, yeah, so this is a loaded question, so I'll start from the beginning. I did go to high school here in KC at an amazing school called St. Teresa's Academy. I absolutely love it, and I really owe a lot. It's just like really cool all-girls college prep academy. Really great place, and I owe so much to them because I obviously learned so much at the school because it's a school, but like, from a human angle, learned a lot from that school. And, they're wonderfully supportive still. And and in terms of college, like, yeah, I do intend to, go to college, perhaps get a degree, all of that. But my main priority right now is the thing I can't come back to, right? So when we have momentum going with this career, and I know that at any point in my life, I can go back to, you can go back to school if you so wish at any point.
Yeah, so true.
Exactly. My focus right now is taking this thing that once it slips, I can't get it back, and trying to, ride this out.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Back to the Grammys.
Yes.
The word is that women were underrepresented. Did you have a sense of that when you were there?
So here's the thing. Like I just said a second ago, I come from an all-girls school, and so that's kind of at the forefront of my mind all the time. And I do think that when we're underrepresented, but honestly, is like anyone surprised by that? That's the thing that irritates me about this conversation a lot of times, is that people seem surprised by the fact that women were underrepresented, or when people seem surprised by the fact that, maybe, whether it be a minority thing, whether it be a gender thing, when there's underrepresentation. And it doesn't excuse it that it's common, but I wasn't shocked by it. It didn't catch me off guard in such a way that I was like, oh my gosh, like the one time that women didn't maybe, get considered as qualified as they were? What?
That's a new thing? Yeah.
Exactly. And so I'd love to see that change next year. I think right now we're in a fantastic climate where there are a lot of things coming to light, and I think that it would be a wonderful thing to see change, and especially in this tidal wave that I credit largely to Kesha, like 2 years ago, maybe around 2 years ago, forgive me if I'm wrong on that, with the Dr. Luke scandal that then snowballed into things like Harvey Weinstein getting called out. I really think this movement started with Kesha. I think a lot of people agree with me. I cried during her performance at the Grammys because honestly, you felt the temperature, if we're going to get real about it, change in the room full of industry people as she's calling out every person who takes care, because I know it's not all men, so I'm not going to say every man, who takes advantage of those situations. So I think right now for social change, it's a pretty good climate. So.
Yeah, I agree. And Kansas City is such an activist center.
Yeah,
so.
You wouldn't suspect that, but I really love it.
Yeah, I love it too. So people go into music often because they have something to say.
Yeah.
What do you like to communicate with your music?
Yeah, for me, I think this is kind of where I end up in a minority because, I always say a few things on this subject. First of all, that no one flocks to performance out of confidence. Like, you're shouting into a void and hoping something echoes back. And so for me, I'm kind of waiting for the echo back. I don't really have anything in particular I'm trying to say, trying to communicate. I'm going to do music so I can, know people, not so people will know me. And so really, it's not so much, this album isn't, and I've said it before, so much a message to be heard as an invitation to be hopefully accepted, to start a dialogue between me and everybody else. I think that's what we're all trying to do in our own way. And for me, my methodology just happened to be, getting in a booth and recording something. It's, in another interview, it was pointed out to me that I accidentally stumbled upon identifying this as like a form of therapy, because you're saying something and hoping to get a response that'll help you understand it better. Exactly. Right? So I can say on a record, I can talk to you about this relationship, I can talk to you about this life thing I'm going through, I can talk to you about my feelings, my self-esteem, et cetera, et cetera. And I can only understand it as much as I've just told you. What helps me understand you, me, and life better is when someone comes up to me at a show and goes, hey, by the way, your song Acting Like You Know, or hey, by the way, the song We're Not Sorry, here's what it meant to me. And it's beautiful because in that moment I just connected with this human being, and a lot of times that turns into a really beautiful relationship and a really beautiful friendship for me because I'm very close with the fan base that listens to my music. But also, it's helped me understand a different point of view on the song. No matter how niche I thought the issue was, there's always someone who takes it to an area I never thought they could relate to it on, but I'm glad they did. And a lot of times it helps me kind of process my life and my feelings better, And so I guess the thing I'm trying to say is I guess I'm not trying to say anything at all. I guess I'm just trying to listen back a little bit harder.
Hearing that validation that people can identify with what you're
Yeah, and just trying to, you experience, life is about experiencing things, experiencing people, and music is something that I realize can do that for me. I get, whether it be from the literal standpoint of, like I just said, I travel so much and get to experience so many things, or from the standpoint of when people listen to this, no matter, even the people who don't like it become, something that I can, understand better and experience and connect with. And so I'm just trying to get as much of that as possible to try and understand how to be a human being better, because that's all what we're trying to do, is just figure out how to be human beings.
Absolutely. Speaking of human beings, you're talented, you're
Thank
creative. You've got the business head.
Thank you.
You're gorgeous. I see maybe Madonna or another Lady Gaga.
I would love that. You just listed two people I would love to be. Thank you.
When you dream, your biggest dreams, what do those look like in the future?
I'm going to take biggest dreams down to the smallest thing I possibly can, which is I just want to feel fulfilled and calm and happy, because I learned in life so far that when you put titles, or for some people it's dollar signs or certain achievements on dreams, it doesn't matter what you do until you get that thing. And if either you never get that thing, or you get that thing and it wasn't everything you wanted it to be. And I never want to do that again. Like, I never want to, if I can avoid it, put myself in a situation where I am, a self-fulfilling prophecy of disappointment. I know artists, I know an artist in particular I'm thinking of, whose name I won't say because it would be totally out of line, but who is one of the most talented people I know, and I don't think they'll ever be happy till they win a Grammy. And they may never win a Grammy, and it doesn't matter, because they have an incredible career and they're amazing, but they may never win that Grammy, and I don't want to think that they'll never feel satisfied, and I know they probably won't. I know, everyone knows someone who is constantly chasing money, and here's the thing with money is that it never ends, and so when do you reach your finish line?
Or even success.
Yeah.
It's always the next success.
And so for me, I just want to feel content. I'll take that wherever it comes, whether it be this album goes platinum, whether it be this album has a couple really, really solid fans, and then I have to put this to the side. Whatever it is, whether it be music or otherwise, I just want to be okay.
Good for you.
Thank you.
Sounds like you may be one of the people that fame doesn't get to.
I would hope not. I would really hope not, because, especially growing up in the music industry, a lot of people who, definitely, you want everyone to be successful, but sometimes that success is damning. And, I think when you have good people around you, again, it's strange, I have a lot of really wonderful people around me. The staff here are all my closest friends, they're family to me. The artists are all looking out for me. Everyone who's affiliated here, to some extent, I feel would check me so fast.
Well,
and so
there.
aggressively.
So you're already conceiving your next album?
Oh my God, yeah. I totally have the plan. I have all the visuals mapped. Don't get me wrong, The Edge, fantastic. Cannot wait to work this album once it's released. But I also can't wait to do this next one, because I already know the theme and all the video. Oh, it's going to be a visual thing. I wish I could talk about it, but I can't.
When do the ideas come up in the middle of the night, or do you have to force them sometimes?
I think everyone has to force it sometimes. You don't wake up every day all this creative energy, let me go drink some green tea and meditate, and then I'll write all my feelings. I wish that was how I woke up every day, but most of the time not. I get ideas and inspiration from people. I say people a lot. I'm a people person, in case you couldn't tell. From stories people tell, from things people say, especially from other music and lyrics and writing. I'm very, like I said, inspired by color. It really just comes at any point throughout my day, in processing day-to-day life. I'm very, very cheesy and nostalgic in a lot of ways, and one of those ways is, being overly attached and over romanticizing the idea of everyday life. Like, it's really cool to me that I have a cubicle. I have a cubicle in the other building. I have a cubicle and a desk job, and I wake up every day, and by 9, sometimes because I'm not on the payroll, I can stretch it a little bit past 9. I'm walking with the same cup of coffee I get every single day at the same place, and it's like routine, and it's very normal and very nice. And so very nice, pleasant things, and the context of that is very positively inspiring for me, you know? And all the while, like, very emotional, internal things sometimes inspire the opposite, very negative things. And so just I guess everyone draws inspiration from life, but I think a lot of people, that means different things. For some people, that means, you know, this fantasy life they want to live, or like some idealized version of what they want. I know that's very popularized in rap music, especially, or maybe not especially, but just because that's my experience with it. You know, not everyone's got a Lambo, but you'd think everyone did. And so it's just trying to convey emotion. I guess I'm not sure I answered the question well, but what I meant is everything and always is inspiring.
Yeah, everything and nothing.
Yeah.
So you're in a unique position to have grown up about musicians and in the music industry, so that's been a buffer too. What would you say, what could advice would you give to young men or women coming up in this business today? Dreaming the big dream, not knowing the pitfalls that
here's the thing. Like you said, I grew up in this, and so I never got to have some glossy, romanticized vision of what the music industry is. So for me, it's always been as ugly as it has been beautiful, and, you know, wonderful and horrible all the same. And so for me, it's hard to try and imagine what it's like to not view it as a little bit of a hellhole. But at the same time, like, I'm back here anyway, and I think that's largely because once you get, like, when you're in it and you don't know anything else, like, how do you go to something else? When you're used to being, like, when you're used to going and doing all these bizarre things, growing up in concert venues with the, you know, with the guys, like with the rappers, and I don't know how you untrain your brain from that and your mindset and your what you love from that. So for people who are maybe new to the industry, or people who are, like you said, kind of dreaming that big dream, my first point is always work ethic, because every overnight success is 10 years in the making, right? Yeah. And nothing will come easy, and be smart and try and know business. This is the most underrated thing with artists, because I can tell you be smart all you want, and I can tell you don't ink a deal until you know till you know all the terms and conditions. I can tell you all of this, right? I can tell you originality, creativity, you know, don't copy other people, but just copy just enough. Like, I can tell you all that, but like everyone else is also telling you that, so you get it. My biggest thing is, if you feel like you have the capacity to try and, or the interest to know business well, try and learn it, because it will change your approach to your art and put you in so much better control and understanding of how to make your project happen. And it will make your life more stressful. It will. But it will put you in such a gratifying position, because honestly, like you said earlier, have I ever been fulfilled with, am I fulfilled with the album? No. Will I be fulfilled with the next one? Maybe not. Because it's, like you said, the endless journey, right? But you know what is pretty fulfilling? Like, and this sounds so stupid, but negotiating like a good marketing deal, like things like that. And I don't say that to be cliche. I say that because as an artist, do yourself the favor of starting a hobby or starting a part of your work that has a conclusive start and finish. You're always, once you put music out, you live with that for the rest of your life. Once you put an album out, you live with that for the rest of your life, and the marketing effort never really ends. Wow, I never thought of that. But because that's maddening, and because the constant influx of being in limbo with things all the time is crazy, getting involved in the business side means that you have deadlines that are very legitimate. You can genuinely take a project, start it, and finish it within a reasonable, visible, tangible amount of time. It really adds some conclusivity to projects that you're working on, and I think that for your mental, just do it. Just try it out. So that's my advice, is, have work ethic and try and get in on the business side at least a little bit, because it will benefit you.
That's fabulous advice.
Thank you.
So, to conclude,
Yay.
you won your first Grammy.
I wish. Yeah.
Well, it'll happen. You're standing on stage and you're thanking people. Who's on your thank list?
You know, really, I have some primaries that are very, very obvious. Miss Wendy, my family, especially my little brother Chavi. I have a 5-year-old brother who is easily one of the best things in my life ever. I love him more than life itself. And everyone at Strange, like it's a short list and a long list. It's a condensed long list because obviously Miss Wendy is obvious. You know, she's my vocal coach. Like she's the reason I'm here. Right. My family is obvious. My little brother is obvious, and then Strange is just my family that's unbiological, right? It's just these are this is the holy trinity of things I couldn't have gotten here without.
Awesome. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Good luck with everything.
Thank you.
This feels like deja vu. I said I'd never see you again, but I run right back to you. 'Cause you're always on my mind. Baby, I think we should give it one more try. 'Cause every day that goes by, I try my best to just